Hey everyone, I'm David Roome, and I'm joined here by Katie Roome, and we're going to have a chill stream, talk about some fun recent half-price books purchases, and also do some more Lego building. So before we get started, I'm just going to tweet out the link and make sure that that is ready to go, and then we can get started. Sorry for the delay. I have been without my MacBook because I've actually had it for just about a year. Oh, no sound yet, Patrick says. That is odd.
It says it's on. Or at least the mic is.
Yeah. There definitely should. Okay. William Jeffrey Rankin says sound very low.
Ah.
That could be caused by a few different things. Okay. Sound very low. Test, 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 test. Is that any better? I'm just turning up the gain on our camera. Move stuff kind of far away, maybe. Can you talk a little bit?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I have been just worn out, beat, tired in the evenings. So, I'm not mad or anything at any point in this stream. I may sink into tired face. I will try not to. I'll stay engaged.
Okay, so we're having
Got my
stereo
sugar drink.
sound issues. Oh, I see what's going on. I see what's going on. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Let me... Actually... Okay, that should be stereo now. Right, and let me... Okay, there. Now I think that should be a lot louder and stereo on everything now. Let me know if it's not. Yeah, I think yeah. The problem is I haven't used the Scarlett on my MacBook yet, and we're doing something a little different for my channel. We are streaming without using StreamYard, and I wanted to do this because one of the problems with StreamYard is that it limits your... Okay, but not louder. Okay. Yeah, I think we just need to turn this gain up here. StreamYard, I think... Yeah, let's see. Test, 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 test. I'm going to move up a little bit into the yellow. Okay, yeah, that should be better. StreamYard does a lot of stuff for you, like fixes audio problems. But one of the issues with it is that the free version of StreamYard limits you to 720p. And for doing things like showing books, showing Lego, maybe that's okay. But I want to see if we can get a little bit nicer image quality since we have a pretty decent camera, and we want to take advantage of the nice setup that we have. So we're gonna try this, see how it works. William Jeffrey Rankin says the audio is better, so I think we're gonna go for it. I see some different people here in the chat. Doug Wise is here. T.W. Fuller, hey, nice to see you here, T.W. Fuller. And Patrick Studebaker is excited because he got another copy of War of the Worlds, which he needed because he had 19 others. Oh, and a laser disc. Do you collect laser discs, Patrick, or is it just a War of the Worlds thing that you got that for? I know people like laser discs because they're the size of records and they have like big art. All right, I hope the audio is better. Let me know. I can turn up the gain on the Scarlett if we need to. I'm just gonna make sure that I have audio capture to. I'm probably low here because I'm not facing towards the mic. Okay, so we're gonna start with a half price books haul. And using our new, okay, so Doug Wise says could bring up the volume a bit more. I will test. You know, I wonder if what it is I wonder if StreamYard does some kind of volume equalization that brings it up a lot more. Because I've got the volume maxed here in OBS and I'm pushing into the yellow with the Focusrite. I bet it must.
I wouldn't be surprised because whenever I use it in StreamYard, I have it so far down that it doesn't even color at all.
Yeah.
And people always say it sounds good.
Yeah.
So they must do something.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see how this is. We're a little far away from the mic too. I'm sure it would work a little bit better if we were closer. But we're still figuring that out. I hope it's loud enough that everybody can hear, and we'll analyze the stream later and figure out what went wrong. So we're going to start with the half-price books haul. Yeah, William Jeffrey Rankin says it probably compresses it.
Yeah.
And then we know it does some echo cancellation stuff too.
If you wanted, you can move your books, and we could slide that way since you'll be talking mostly for this section.
Sure, let's try that. Whoops, and I jostled. There we go. Yeah, now I gotta watch it. I think, actually I'm probably okay because I'm only seeing a little bit of yellow here on the mic. Thanks for bearing with us as we figure this out, guys. Hopefully, if we can get this figured out, we'll have some nice higher quality audio and video on stream. Oh, and that light is off.
Oh.
Maybe it got turned off or unplugged. Sorry, babe.
It's all right.
Okay, here we go. And maybe we could bring that closer and aim it down a little bit, just so we've got some nice.
Oh, that was holding like this cord back.
Well, that's okay. All right,
Okay.
So yeah, now we're really loud. Okay, now I'm pushing into the red. Test. Okay, we always test in production here. All right. Yeah, I'll probably tweak this as I go. Hopefully it's not too big of a problem. So, had a neat haul the other day. So, went over to Rosedale to the Apple store to take in my MacBook because it had a couple dead pixels. And I'm getting got the screen replaced while it was under warranty. That was a great experience. I like Apple. And then while we were there, over in Roseville, we visited the Roseville half-price books, which isn't the one that we usually go to. Katie doesn't like it.
I found nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
Kids' books.
Well, yeah.
That the kids picked out, and
lots of kids' books.
You know, like a half dozen.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing for me. I was distraught.
Distraught. Yeah, Katie really struggles with shopping and not buying anything.
It's the worst.
It's the worst. So, but it was a good day for me. I spent a ton of time in the comics because the more I flipped through, the more I was finding things that are the things that I collect, when I look for comics. So, oh, and I see another thing here. So, I'm going to have to. I think we're gonna have to rotate this as well. Yeah.
What?
Yep. It's okay. We just gotta rotate it 180 degrees.
Ah, there we go.
All right. And I don't suppose this comes down any.
It doesn't. No. It's as far
Well,
down.
No, it comes down farther.
Oh, I see.
Sorry, guys. We're learning. We're figuring things out.
Sorry, guys. Patrick says it's just the dress rehearsal.
Yeah. We're figuring this out on my channel so that my channel looks like this, so Katie's channel can look like this. Right? Okay. So, yeah, had a really nice comics haul from Half Price Books, and I was finding a lot of different stuff that I collect, and it fell into a few different categories. So, I'm going to kind of go through them separately. So, the first thing I found is a few actual issues of Spawn. So up until this point, so I'm collecting basically all of the early Image comic books, and I have not bought any actual issues of Spawn up until this point because I got a hold of a couple of trade paperbacks that go through about issue 15 or so. And Spawn, of all of the early Image comic books, they're a little bit more expensive usually. Spawn #1 is maybe like $30 or $40. The next two are maybe like 10 or $12 a piece, and then issues under 20 are typically around $5. These were $2 a piece, and they're not in very good shape, but I thought, okay, as long as I'm buying a bunch of other stuff, I'll grab these. This one, issue number 10, I was especially excited to get because this is an issue that is not in the trade paperbacks. This is the one that Dave Sim wrote, where Spawn kind of goes into the world of Cerberus. And it's kind of a neat story, and just really, really gorgeous art in this book. This image here you see depicted a lot. Spawn is kind of, I forget whether he's in hell or in some dimension where all of the superheroes are in a cage. And I haven't read it yet, but the book is kind of about actually about the creations of people being owned by corporations as opposed to being their own. So it's kind of a rambling treatise on independent creators, which I think is kind of interesting. So I'm excited to read this.
Patrick says David is going to break out his Sharpie now.
Yeah. There's just some really gorgeous art in this book. Just really, really wonderful stuff. So I was really excited to find that. And then 11 and 12 are also good issues too. I especially like issue 12. This is the issue where Spawn remembers that the skull image motif that's been repeated throughout the in his visions is Chapel, and Chapel's the one who killed him. So kind of a neat story. So those were a nice find, even though they're not in very good shape. It's nice. They're a nice thing to have. And I'll start grabbing more Spawn issues as I see them. So these I found in the clearance section, and I don't really collect either War of the Worlds or Superboy, but when I see stuff like Bronze Age stuff for 50 cents, I just kind of buy it no matter what it is, or even if it's not in very good shape, because typically this kind of stuff, to get it, like whenever you see a comic that is 15 cents or 20 cents, if you ever decide you want that issue for whatever reason, you're going to be probably paying like $10 at least to get it. So I just grab them. And I have a bunch of Marvel stuff actually from the 20-cent era, so this is not like a total outlier in my collection. And my mom actually used to read Superboy as a kid, and I have one of her Superboy issues that's quite a bit earlier than this one. This is 162, and it's from January of 1970. But cool stuff to find in the 50-cent bin. Next here, just some different Image stuff that was in the clearance bin. So this is Shadowhawk number 0. This is actually part of the Image crossover when they all drew each other's books. So this is Rob Liefeld drawing Shadowhawk, and it's 0 because Valentino was more particular about Shadowhawk having a coherent storyline and didn't want Liefeld dropping in and doing an issue that he had planned. So this was a cool find. I also found Brigade Volume 2 number 1, which I was missing. Nothing super special about this, but it's fun to fill in the collection. And then Shadowhawk 3 number 2, which is the last of the original Shadowhawk series that I didn't have. And then when I was putting this into my collection, I realized that a bunch of the other Shadowhawk books they had Shadowhawk number 12. Like, that's actually the ones that come directly after.
Oh, no.
So if I get a chance to go back there in the next few weeks, I'll probably try to grab more of those. Shadowhawk is kind of cool. He is like a vigilante Batman type character who has this mirror silver costume. And what he does is he finds small-time criminals and breaks their backs so they can't do crime anymore. And he's also a black guy who's HIV positive. So he's like the perfect storm of 90s superhero.
Patrick says that he finished the War of the Worlds Amazing Adventures just last year.
Oh, nice.
He had to stoop to eBay for the last issue.
Nice. Yeah, so you probably know that this is kind of a nice find. I wasn't super familiar with Amazing Adventures, but it's kind of like an anthology that focuses on different characters. I see like Killraven is on here, and there's some earlier issues of Amazing Adventures that are just Amazing Adventures presents Killraven, but I believe it's all like one continuous story. And Michael Caine's here. Hey, Michael Caine. Okay, so next, some random Marvel stuff from the 50-cent bin. So I don't normally just grab stuff like this, but it's from an interesting era, and the interesting era is, for me, is Marvel right before the Image founders left. So these books are all books that are illustrated by Image founders while they were still at Marvel. This Wolverine is Mark Silvestri Wolverine. Really pretty book. It's really nice. And then these Marvel Comics Presents Wolverines are like sort of a anthology that has different stories, and they're all kind of a neat collection. So this one has 2 Rob Liefeld stories in it, and this one has Sam Keith, Jay Lee, and a couple of people that I'm not familiar with. So Sam Keith Wolverine story, that's pretty awesome. Sam Keith has a really distinct art style that has a lot of kind of ink spatters, and yeah, like this is kind of like Sam Keith. I've talked about the Max before. Just very distinct, unique art style. So this was cool to find. Okay, so Patrick Studebaker says it was Killraven's introduction arc. I kind of thought that might have been what it was. I'm not too familiar with that character, but next thing I found was a couple issues of She. So this is She number 12, and I found out when I got home that this is actually the last issue of the original She Way of the Warrior. So that's cool find. And then this one is the Image Comics Cyblade She crossover. So Cyblade is like the bad girl member of Cyberforce, and Cyberforce is one of the first Image series that I like the most. It has kind of a neat high-tech X-Men vibe to it. And this book is called The Battle for Independence. It's part 1 of 2. The second part, I believe, was actually published by Crusade, which is Billy Tucci's publisher, independent publisher that he published She under. And it's kind of funny that it's called The Battle for Independence, and independence is spelled correctly here. It's about independent comics, right? So independent comic characters. And the other crazy thing about this book is that this book is actually the first appearance of Witchblade, who is who's a character that ended up being one of the most beloved characters from Mark Silvestri and Top Cow. So both of these books are really cool books to have for a couple bucks apiece.
Patrick says all these finds, and again, 0 for Katie.
And then the last thing I found is a couple more Marvel X-Men related books, and these are also Image founders. So here's Rob Liefeld X-Force number 3, and then Jim Lee's X-Men 8 and 9. And these are also books that, I'm not like super passionate about, but like when you see them for a couple bucks a piece, you grab them, because if you ever want them later, you're going to be paying more for them. And for these kinds of things, I like to just collect like under issue 10 or under 20, something like that. And the covers on these are just gorgeous. I mean, this to me is like how comics should look. And I actually just noticed this is a newsstand edition, so that's kind of cool with the barcode on it. Yeah, Patrick Studebaker is talking about the Witchblade TV series, which I think was one of the first. Well, not one of the first, but like a sort of a memorable TV comic adaptation. Finally, the last thing I found was a whole run of a book called DNA Agents, and I was really surprised to find this. So this is from Eclipse, and the neat thing about this book is it is some early work by, later in here, Eric Larson, who went on to be one of the Image founders, and he did Savage Dragon, which is one of my other favorite of the books. And all these books just are super wonderful. They all have amazing covers, and they're in really nice shape. So I have 1 through 17, which actually I believe is the whole run of the new DNA Agents, except I'm missing 3 and 4. So that was a nice set. I'm anxious to read through these, and these I think are from 1985 or so, 86 sometime, so a little bit earlier than some of the other stuff I have, but just very, very beautiful. And again, I kind of feel like stuff from this era is just how I think comics should look. Like when I think of how should a comic book look, it's this.
Very nice.
Yeah. Okay, so just a couple more books here. I've talked before, this isn't one I got today, but I've talked before about this Essential Guides series in Star Trek. This is the Essential Guide to Vehicles. I've been trying to pick up the rest of these. So this time I found the Essential Guide to Weapons and Technology, and this one is kind of fun because it's a little thicker than the others. It's about 200 pages long, and there are 200 things in this book. So everything from, you know, like the super laser and the Death Star to sensors and transmitters, traps, security cameras, all kinds of stuff. And I read a bunch of this book. It's kind of neat because it sort of goes in detail into how a lot of the technology in Star Wars works, and it's sort of from a time when people cared more about making the stuff consistent and having a nice explanation for how things worked than they do now. So an artifact of a different time, and nice illustrations. The vehicles one is especially cool because it's the illustrations are by Doug Chang, who went on to design a lot of the vehicles for the prequel trilogy and the sequel trilogy. This book maybe doesn't have that pedigree, but it still is a pretty neat book and is well illustrated. Patrick says he liked Savage Dragon and Mars Attacks. They cut off his head and then are shocked he's still alive and a cop. Yeah, one of the things that I think is really funny about Savage Dragon is that he is like this mutant, and then he just decides that his calling in life is to be a police officer. So he's this police officer who just really savagely beats up criminals because he's basically invincible. I just think it's funny that he's like a police officer. He's not even a vigilante. He's a literal police officer. He just joins the police force and becomes a police officer. Okay, this is the last thing I found, this Star Wars encyclopedia. I don't always buy things like this, but this was only $10, and it is a big fat Del Rey book, color, in really nice shape. It's got a timeline, lots of entries, nice pictures, and this book, it is from just the right era too. Intro by Timothy Zahn, so that's kind of cool. And it is from 1998, and it also lists all of the essential guides. This Star Wars Technical Journal, I'm not familiar with that book, so that's one that I'm going to have to look for now. And I think I have all of these except the planets and moons and droids. So this is just from the right era. So this was a really cool find, and one of those things you just, fun things about half-price books, you just find things that you don't expect. And then another thing about this book, so the author, Stephen Sansweet, he is the proprietor. I forget what the name of it is, but it's like the world's largest Star Wars collection. It's called like Rancho de Obi-Wan or something. But if you are at all interested in Star Wars collectibles or toys, and like you watch YouTube videos or documentaries about this, you'll often see interviews with this guy. So kind of an interesting feature of this book that he's the author of it. So yeah, a cool find, and I'm anxious to read through this and kind of go back to that time when people cared about Star Wars. Patrick says, when I was collecting Star Wars audiobooks after Disney killed off the extended universe, I was trying to order them in the Star Wars timeline, Battle of Yavin, but they released more and I gave up. Yeah, I would be I'm not super familiar with a lot of the extended universe stuff. So I'm anxious to learn more from some of these books about about where exactly that stuff fits. And I think these books from 98 or so are kind of interesting because they are in that sweet spot where you had the Timothy Zahn books, a lot of the EU stuff that came out before the Phantom Menace, before it got maybe a little bit too corporatized. I feel like with Phantom Menace, then Star Wars kind of came out of being a niche thing and there was just way more stuff. So this stuff is all just from that kind of interesting era, specifically dealing with EU stuff. And I know all of these books do have a lot of EU stuff in them, because that was the canon back then, right? It was the original films and whatever EU stuff was available. All right, well that's it. So should we do some Lego building?
Yeah.
So we're gonna continue on the Galaxy Explorer. We'll probably just do one bag because because Katie is a little bit worn out tonight.
I think I must have something.
Yeah, something's going around.
I was the same last night. It was worse last night.
Mm-hmm. And I'll probably be back tomorrow with a game project update and maybe even some streaming on that. I've kind of put together a list of some different topics I'm going to talk about from week to week in addition to streaming. I probably won't do that tomorrow since it's been several weeks since I've done a game project update, but I have some really neat stuff to show, so stay tuned for that. All right, you want to pull it down?
Oh, is it up there?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I never tweeted that we were live, but that's okay.
Okay, I do not have the box, so I don't know where our next bag is.
Oh, okay. It's actually. Did we take it back up? No, we didn't take it back upstairs. Oh, the box is right there.
Oh, that's right.
I'll grab it just a sec.
Okay, thanks, babe. I'm warm under this blanket.
Okay. Oh, nice.
Should we lift up the camera a little bit now?
Yeah. Do you want to tighten that down a little bit?
This one?
Yeah. So Michael Caine says that he's got some Lego projects coming up soon because his birthday hauls are. So is this sets that you got for your birthday?
Okay. Try not to crinkle stuff too much, guys.
Oh, okay. So he got the Chinese New Year family reunion celebration that he's going to adapt into his city.
Fun.
That's cool.
Let's start with this upside down here. Oh boy, okay.
So some interesting stuff happening on Twitter today that I want to mention.
Yeah.
So I'm arguing with some people because everybody thinks that Claude is sentient, which is stupid. So I don't normally argue about this kind of thing on Twitter, but I am in a little arc where I am trying to experiment with trying to get more impressions. I'm going to move some of this stuff back a little more, just so we don't have to have the camera angled so much. I'm on an arc trying to get some more impressions, and because I think I want to take a stab at just trying to see what do I have to do to get close to monetization impressions. So I'm kind of arguing with some people about Claude being sentient, or one guy is basically calling it a person, which is idiotic in my opinion, and totally separate from being like whether it's sentient or not. I don't think it's either, because I think sentience is really something that only people and animals have, and it's not a person or animal, so it's not sentient. But I think most people would agree that it's not person. So that's kind of low-hanging fruit. So that's fun. And then the other thing that I think is kind of interesting is that some of the Comicsgate people, and full disclosure, I think probably everybody knows that in the whole Comicsgate versus Eric July thing, I'm like on the Comicsgate side. But some of the Comicsgate people are accusing one of the Rippaverse people's Yaira artwork of being AI traced, and I don't find what they're saying compelling at all. So we might be moving into Comicsgate fringe people being annoying in this argument, and it's weird because it's the Comicsgate drama account, and he's kind of arguing that it's AI based on proportions, which is odd to me. Typically when you have AI art, you see it in the little details and things, not in the general composition. Mm-hmm. And they're arguing that it was traced from an AI composition, which I think is pretty much impossible to argue at this point. Did you run into an issue?
No. Well, we never said what we were building.
Oh, yeah. So we are building the Icons.
I can't see what I'm doing.
Yeah,
so
it's the Icons Galaxy Explorer.
There you go.
So this is the remake of the classic Galaxy Explorer set.
All right. Do you want to go?
Yeah. So I don't know if you have any opinions on either of those issues, Katie. Did you see the I know you're a little fed up with the whole Comicsgate versus Eric July thing, but did you see that that conversation at all?
And I think it's awkward, the image that they posted.
Yeah.
But it's not really an AI type of issue. Things aren't bleeding into other things. It's really just one that's like her groin / hip doesn't.
Yeah. the muscle is a little is shaded a little weird, but
Yeah.
it is not. I
It
I think we have to be really careful about accusing people of using AI at this point.
Yeah, I think that, and I think that pointing out problems doesn't necessarily make it AI, right? Proportionally,
Yeah.
like art, especially people, is hard,
Mm-hmm.
and even if you trace a real image, things can look weird
Mm-hmm.
and not quite right. So it's
Yeah, and especially in comics art where you might be intentionally bending proportions
yeah.
too.
I,
To me, I think it's just very, very difficult to prove or to even argue that something is an AI trace.
right.
Because I don't think that the patterns in how AI does composition are as noticeable as how it renders.
Yeah. And okay, say that somebody did trace AI art in order to make that image.
Mm-hmm.
How is that worse than what is already
Yeah.
come to light, that like the corners that are being cut, right?
Yeah.
It's not as if it would be a whole different ballgame.
Yep.
In my opinion, anyway. I guess that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and to me that's sort of the worst thing already. So I don't know, and it's a piece for a fan art,
Like
Yaira
proportional.
fan art contest or whatever. It doesn't matter. It seems like a strange thing to be
Yeah.
picking at this point. T.W. Fuller points out the famous Liefeld feat. Yeah, I think somebody right in that thread said let's put Rob Liefeld images into a AI art detector. I thought that was pretty funny. I have to admit, I kind of like Rob Liefeld because he makes people mad. I think it's kind of funny. There are a lot of plates going on in these steps right here. A lot of plates. Now, I think these two are supposed to be
Parallel.
Yeah. I will say this set has had some of the most easy to screw up, like sort of measuring type issues that I've seen.
Where is there it is.
Which is not bad, not a bad thing. But certain
It's
things
gonna be frustrating.
are actually quite hard to fix. So we're gonna actually have to rip a bunch of this out
Oh man.
to get at this. It's okay. I'm just gonna double check here before I do that. Make sure that it's actually correct. Yeah.
What is it that needs?
So it's basically, like you can see here,
Mm-hmm.
these two have to both be moved down a stud.
Okay.
So that we should be able to push out with this. But we can't because it's locked in the other way. So we have to pull this black part apart, right? Just trying to figure out the best way to do this. Maybe like this. There we go. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, Rob Liefeld is a cool guy, and he is somebody who is like very excited about his work, and a great interview personality, although he's not great at letting the interviewers get a word in edgewise. I think the way his energy, though, it kind of takes you back to the place that he was in as a young person working in comics, where it was just this constant never ending stream of last minute work on things, and crazy fights with people, and he really was the prime mover behind Image, if my understanding is correct. He was the first one to start doing his own thing and make Marvel really mad. And then he kind of brought everybody else with him. So, a very important person in the history of independent comics.
That story is so funny to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if anybody isn't familiar with the story of the founding of Image Comics, it's really, really cool. And I think something that most kind of indie people would appreciate, even if they're not comic people.
Yeah.
I think the story of the founding of Image Comics kind of is what got me into comics.
I like the part where they decide to leave Marvel and they go to that big meeting, say that they're going to do that. And then they walk out and decide to go over to DC and tell them that they're
like,
leaving
okay,
Marvel.
Well, as long as we're here, we're going to go over to DC and we're going to tell them, hey, we're never going to work for you either. Todd McFarlane's just like going off, and everybody else is like, I don't know if I wanted to tell DC that I'm never going to work for them either, but I guess that's what we're doing. Because DC was all excited when they walked in. They're like, we can, like, all these people are leaving Marvel, we can hire them, and that's not what happened at all. Okay.
My turn.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
There we go. Come on. There.
All right. T.W. Fuller is signing off. He says
Have
he
a good
hopes
one.
that you get some sleep.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, have a good night. Thanks for stopping.
Okay. Did you do a whole spread?
Yep.
Okay, good. Can keep going.
If you want, you can move this back and have make a place to put the book. You want me to put it here? Can you still see it?
Yeah. Well, I'll just kind of. Turn this
I'll
over.
do some sorting for you here.
Thank you, my love.
The camera doesn't really quite convey how big this is. It's quite large. You know, bigger than pretty much any Star Wars ship I have other than the Millennium Falcon in the size of it end to end.
Yeah. It's nice.
The set has some alternate builds too where you can build smaller ships, but unfortunately you can't build more than one ship, more than one smaller ship at the same time. Having trouble there?
Well, there. Okay. It just didn't seem like it was.
Those are new pieces to me. These landing gear.
I've seen them before in my Tranquil Garden build.
What were they?
Stones, I think. I only had like one, maybe two.
Yeah, they're like squares with rounded edges.
Okay.
Our table is creaking here.
Oh dear. Where is? Ah, there it is.
I think we're getting a lot better picture quality
I think so
out of
too.
this going direct.
Here you go, my love.
I just want to look at what you. This is kind of cool. These dishes here on the bottom.
Who was it, like a couple weeks ago now, that was dissing video games?
Oh, Aaron Wren.
Who is he again? He
is a blogger, podcaster, kind of in the reformed space. He's like it's kind of he's a really interesting character because he's kind of a white collar thinker by trade. He worked for these different business consulting companies and think tanks, separate that weren't like Christian organizations. But he is somebody that I liked because he had maybe the best understanding and sort of appreciation for the manosphere and a lot of the red pill type stuff.
Okay.
Of a lot of people that I've seen. And some of that I think is because he's not a pastor. He's a lay person, so he kind of doesn't have that set of pastor biases I think I've talked about before when it comes to those issues. That's one of the reasons that I was kind of upset, not upset, but just disappointed seeing him go after video games, because I feel like he's a person who I thought maybe would sort of appreciate men's hobbies a little bit more. Like, he's not the type of person to sort of denigrate men, or denigrate men for the sake of appealing to women, which is what you see a lot when people make those kind of complaints. But yeah, he went there unfortunately. So this is kind of cool. I'm gonna just show this because it's hard to see.
What have you done? Maybe nothing.
They'd come off both sides.
Oh.
Here. It's kind of cool. So there's these transparent pieces here, and in this step there's a plate that's going over the top. So the only part of these that's going to be visible is that little edge there. Sometimes it's fun with Lego how you have these little details that get built into the so William Jeffrey Rankin. Oh, and I'm missing something here. Oh, yeah, there's another one here. William Jeffrey Rankin says that he recalls seeing some of that exchange. Yeah. I didn't like fight with him about it. He's not a person who like argues on Twitter. But yeah, and Michael Caine says that video games are a universally easy target for people that don't play them. And I agree with that. I think because they aren't as universal of a hobby as, say, something like watching sports or watching movies or listening to music, they're a little bit unique, and it's just an easy win for, like, person X doesn't like video games, so if they sort of diss video games, then probably about 70% of people agree with them. So it's an easy thing to say, and I think that's kind of what the case was with Aaron Wren. But I was still surprised, because I know he's also a computer person. He I know in his past he did computer programming. He's shared a GitHub repo that he wrote for I think it's for extracting corrupted zip files or something. So, and I don't know, like, typically computer people are video game people too. Like, even if it's not something that they do anymore, it's something that they probably did a little bit in the past. My dad is kind of like that. He doesn't play video games, but he has a little bit here and there in his life and has kind of an appreciation for them. So it was odd. It was odd to see him taking those positions. I'd like to talk about that article of his sometime.
Sure.
And I might do that on this channel, because this channel is kind of about more about video games than your channel. But either way, either place would be a good place to do it. Did you have something in particular that you wanted to say about that?
No, I just knew that you had been thinking about that.
Yeah, sometime we'll bring that article up and go through it. It's kind of a stupid one. I mean, the article isn't stupid and Wren isn't stupid, but it's just sort of the way people were treating it as stupid. William Jeffrey Rankin says it was kind of like Walsh's anime thing. Exactly, and I expected better of Wren, because he's not so much of a provocateur. But the article was literally, it was like, stop doing these vices.
Yeah.
And it was like things. It was several things that pretty much everybody would agree with that are bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then video games, and video games even stood out because it wasn't like he said you should never do these things.
Mm-hmm.
But he kind of ended with saying, like, you shouldn't play video games if you're a man who's over 30 unless you're playing with your kids, which is, you know, it's bizarre because if it's a vice you shouldn't be doing it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know, like the other things were like gambling, pornography, weed.
All things that are okay when
Yeah.
you're underage
Yeah,
or something.
yeah, like none of those other things are okay to do. Well, okay, I'm not going to necessarily argue it, but I think most of the people who read the article would agree with him that those things are just bad.
Mm-hmm.
and wouldn't really have a problem with somebody saying, hey, you shouldn't do this at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I believe that about weed. I think there's probably there might be a place for weed for some people.
And I understand, like, I'm not gonna. I'm not a gambler myself, but
Mm-hmm.
like I can kind of see.
Yeah. But I mean, like alcohol was not on his list of vices, right? I mean, pornography certainly is something that is like not to be messed with.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just disappointing, and you know, I was sort of going back and forth a little bit with some people who were also responding to the article, and you know, they were saying stuff like, well, it was kind of a clickbait that it's in the title, but the article makes a reasonable claim, and I'm just like, no, it's not reasonable.
Right.
Saying you should avoid playing video games unless it's with kids if you're over 30 is not a reasonable claim. We're so used to people just saying don't play video games at all that if you find some smart Christian person that's saying something that isn't that, then it's like a reasonable opinion. But it's not. That isn't a reasonable opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It is a silly opinion that is not backed up by anything more than sort of a snobbish, I want to have somebody to look down my nose at opinion. And it's understandable coming from somebody who doesn't play video games or doesn't appreciate them, but you know,
that doesn't make it reasonable.
It doesn't make it a reasonable opinion, and it doesn't make it correct.
So this white ventilator piece, retired for many years, was reintroduced in 2019, it says.
Oh, the vent?
Yep, that's what it says.
That's funny. I feel like
I
thought I had seen this before 2019, but I guess not. Yeah.
You turn that up.
Yeah, the goofy thing about it is, you know, I don't want to, and we've talked about this a lot before, you know, I don't want to sit and argue with these kind of people, you know, listing the reasons that video games are okay. And that's what a lot of people do, you know, they sort of say, well, video games are okay because they help me unwind or whatever. Yeah. Those arguments are honestly like the kind of arguments that people would make about weed if they were trying to justify weed, you know, using drugs or whatever, or even pornography, right? But you know, like if you believe that it's okay to play video games with kids, right? Somebody's got to make those video games, right? Who's making the video games that you're playing with your kids? I'm assuming adults. Should those video games be good? If they should be good, how does one make a good video game? Well, you study them, you play them, you learn about them, you enjoy them. You know, that doesn't happen magically. You have to do it. So I don't know, like, would he say playing video games not with your kids is okay if you're over 30 and your job is making video games? Or is a job making video games a stupid job for a man to have, and the video games that we're allowed to play with our kids if we're over 30 just supposed to pop out of the ether or come from bad people or whatever. I don't know. I just don't understand the reasoning that goes into something like that. I mean, obviously I think video games are okay for people of any age, but even if you believe that, even if you agreed with him, you know, like, where do video games come from? Where do good video games come from? Is like making good video games a worthwhile thing for a man to do? Mm-hmm. You know,
what are the good things about video games when you're playing with children? Mm-hmm. Is it you are playing with your child and that's it? Mm-hmm. Or are there other edifying elements?
Yeah.
That are somehow limited in their edification to only children.
Yeah, which is silly. That's another silly idea.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that people or they're only valuable because they teach teamwork or something.
Yeah.
But like, even then, surely if you said, you know, the value of video games is teaching teamwork, I suppose I should start this. You want to each make one?
Yeah, sure. You also have these little yellow pieces
in
the back.
Let's say that the value of video games is teaching kids teamwork, right? Well, does that just happen automatically, or is there a continuum of games that are better or worse at teaching teamwork? Mm-hmm. And if there is, then how does one go about making a video game that's better at teaching teamwork? Well, presumably you have to play video games and learn about what makes them good or not. Yeah. And I don't know.
Yeah,
it's frustrating. Michael Caine says that he has trouble showing his parents the worthwhile aspects of video games, and I agree somewhat. I sometimes show my parents a little bit of different games that I'm playing, and they seem sort of ambivalent about it. That's okay.
Your mom was not impressed with Spider-Man.
Yeah,
she's a little bit afraid of heights.
My mom she's like sort of afraid of heights, so I showed her some of Spider-Man on PS5, like with like where you can jump off buildings and swing around, and yeah, she didn't care for that.
But I think in general our families are a little bit just, our hobbies are not their hobbies, mm-hmm. you know? So, and
that's totally fine, and they're not antagonistic at all about our hobbies. And they've supported us in them too. Like, if we were to put video games on our Christmas list, you know, they would buy them for us. Your mom especially. Mm-hmm. My parents have bought, you know, when I was a kid and a teenager, they would buy me games that I asked for my birthday or for Christmas, and, you know, allowed me to do those things.
Sorry guys, we're building off camera.
Weren't always the most enthusiastic about it, but didn't discourage me either. And they encouraged me to work on my own game projects and things, so. I think part of getting older is just realizing that, you know, many of your interests are going to be just uniquely yours. Mm-hmm. And you're not necessarily going to find people who share them, and that's okay. Mm-hmm.
We can argue with them on the internet.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the great things about the internet is you can find like-minded people.
Yeah.
You can kind of find your niche.
Are they the same? Looks good.
Your studs aren't facing the same direction as mine.
What is happening here? Oh, I see.
Oh, that's satisfying.
That's cool.
So
I'll hold it.
I knew it was built like this, but they slip right in there. Set really nice. Oh yeah, and that's why it's setting against that rounded part of this Technic piece. That's why it feels so solid on there.
Oh, nice. Okay.
All right, just a few pieces left. Should we each do one side here?
Sure.
Yeah, we'll do a longer video sometime about that article. And before we do it, I kind of want to read his book. I have his book that just came out. That's another reason why I was sad to see that article. Is probably if I had seen that if he had come out with that article before his book came out, I might not have bought his book. That sounds like sort of a petty thing, but I generally don't lend monetary support to people who basically make it known that they are against what I'm trying to do. Yeah. Right? And because like a lot of my art project involves and is inspired by video games, like somebody who says men over 30 shouldn't do that, it's like, okay, you're not a friend. Right? But I'm curious now to see if his book talks at all about video games.
Yeah.
Because it's his book is about how Christians should interact with culture, right? And I think he has something to say. He probably has something to say about, general things to say about Christians creating culture and art, I'm assuming.
I would hope.
And I think video games are included in that, so I'm curious to see if it comes up. Yeah, so William Jeffrey Rankin, his name is Aaron Renn, R-E-N-N. So he is somebody that I think I found because he is a conservative Presbyterian guy. I'm not sure if he's a member of the OPC or PCA. Like, we're Orthodox Presbyterian, Katie and I. But he's one of the two. So he's like very theologically similar on a lot of issues to us. Well, when I was impressed when I originally found him because of his sort of knowledge and sort of honesty, but also sympathy for some of the manosphere red pill ideas. And he has a neat. His YouTube channel is worth checking out. He has interviews with people. I don't like a lot of his people that he interviews. I think he's a nicer and more interesting guy than a lot of them. But he does some interviews with some neat people, and he does nice newsletters where he just kind of talks about culture. And he got kind of famous for this article that he wrote about this idea of the negative world, where in the past Christianity was seen very positively, and then around about 20 years ago or so, we were in an era where Christianity was seen as sort of neutral, and now we're in an era where Christianity is seen negatively, and that's what he means by the negative world. So he writes a lot about given this sort of understanding of how things are and how things have changed, how should Christians engage with culture, kind of knowing that our beliefs are considered bad or harmful, or we're kind of considered the enemy in a lot of ways. And that's something that I've kind of seen. I think some of our we've run into this issue where, trying to work with people who just sort of believe that like conservative Christianity will be reacted to positively by randos on the street, is just not, it's just not realistic. So it's interesting to have somebody who's sort of articulated that idea well, while also trying to keep engaging with culture. Like, he's kind of a white collar, like, he talks a lot about like the elite class and how it's not bad to be elite. I think he kind of sees himself as sort of an elite person, kind of like the Accenture consultant, kind of suit wearing think tank. He writes these articles that have been published in major news outlets about why cities are good and stuff like that. It's like, so he's kind of that kind of like a different kind of person. And I think that's part of the reason why he kind of looks down his nose at video games, is I think they're kind of a blue collar hobby. And I think he's a little bit above that. I know he made some comments in the article about like refining his tastes as he gets older, and it's like, dude, come on. But yeah, interesting guy. And I think I should probably make that a goal. I'll try to read his book first before we talk about.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe if we make a nice video about his book, we'll get his attention and he'll interact with it.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
I thought our video that we did about Matt Walsh was really good.
I thought so too.
And I'm sure it's kind of rambly, but I think it was one of the most comprehensive critiques of that idea that I saw from like anybody in our circles, or actually really anywhere. So unfortunately, I don't think he made a video version of that article, so we can't EFAP it. But yeah, Doug Wise points out, I've yet to see someone talk about reforming the elites or elite-driven whatever that didn't assume that they were naturally one of them. Yeah. And that is something that I find interesting about him, because I don't identify as elite at all. I did not come from a family that had money. My great grandparents were all farmers. My great grandparents, most of them were immigrants to this country who came from Europe to become farmers. I'm like the second generation of people in our family who went to college. I think you have more people who were educated going farther back in your family, because your family has been here longer, but
they were all pastors and parsons.
Yep. But my parents were like the first generation to go to college. I didn't grow up wealthy. Actually grew up not poor, but like, money was pretty tight. My parents were never in debt. So I think they were very, my parents were very good with money. So we never like struggled with having, food on the table or anything like that, but we weren't like well off. And I've met people in real life who are what I would call elite.
Sure.
Like at my job, people who come from a line of people who have PhDs, right? For instance, like it's like it's not just you go to college, you get a PhD, right? Or you don't just get a PhD, but you go to a good school and you're going to get you're not just going to work at a company, you're going to be the vice president of the company, right? And they're very different people. A lot of those people are very, very nice people. I think a lot of blue collar people kind of look down on people like that as snobs. Some of the nicest people that I've known in my life have been those kind of elite type people. But yeah, I don't consider myself that, and I have no desire to be an elite person, because I don't think it really would help my project.
Right. Goal oriented.
Yeah. Like I have the internet, I can build an audience. I've already found people who are interested in what I'm doing. Being the vice president of a company would actually get in the way of me having time to do the things that are important to me. I don't really have, desires to be in leadership positions of anything.
Yeah. Just practically.
Yep, just practically. It's not.
And I should not have power and influence. Yeah. that would not be wise.
Yeah.
For anybody to give me power and influence. I always end up saying something stupid when I do have any measure of influence. It always surprises me too. Like, I remember in college, my family wanted to do some community theater, and my family's, if you go to community theater, they're fairly good actors for community theater, and they usually get good parts. And I got the lead role in this particular community theater play, and there were a lot of high schoolers who were my sister's age. So I was college freshman maybe, and then all of these kids filling out the younger roles. And one day after practice, we all went to a movie, and they started arguing about who was going to sit next to me in the theater. Like, there was a fight, and Cassidy was like, "I'm her sister, you have to let me sit next." And I was just like, the whole time I had hardly talked to anybody. I'd just been memorizing my lines. Like, these kids were not my age at all.
And what does this have to do with people being elite or not?
Oh, probably nothing. This is me with tired brain.
Were you the elite person in that situation?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird social things happen. William Jeffrey Rankin says too many meetings if you're elite. Yeah, that's my experience. I worked for over 10 years the beginning of my career up until last year in a Fortune 500. I forget how far up the Fortune 500 it is, but a Fortune 500, very large, like 100,000 person company, and some nice people, very, very nice, kind, like well-intentioned people in the upper levels of that company, and I was fortunate to know some of them. I was friends actually with one VP who was really big into Lego, so we would always chat over Teams about Lego, and I knew the VP of corporate research pretty well, and I also interacted with this group in the company that was like the strategy group. So basically a lot of people who graduated with like MBAs would come in. So they're like young, very motivated, very together people would come in, and these are the people who would like end up going to be like directors or VPs or whatever. And they're all very nice, but it's not a lot of real work done. A lot of okay, I'm going to review your PowerPoint and then may or may not make a decision that affects you about it.
May or may not make a decision.
It's really bad. The one big decision that really affected me, I don't like in my whole time that was there at 3M, came down from somewhere on high. I think it was like one of like the C-level people that I had never interacted with, and basically went against the wishes of like everybody else who was in my chain of command. So basically, none of those people had anything to do, had any control, real control over what I was working on. Everything came from the bottom up, and it's very hard for me after that experience to look at those kinds of people and say, yeah, this is something I want to be or want to be a part of.
Yeah.
And I was tweeting about this today, you know, like there's a point at which, you know, it's hard to say that people are dumb and that their behavior is malicious. Like none of these people were like doing anything malicious, but they were just very like ineffective and not really doing a whole lot. So especially looking back, it's like I don't really have much respect for any of them. I honestly,
even if it wasn't malicious, it's still...
I honestly don't know what they accomplished, what they could really look at in their career and say that they did, you know, like what wouldn't have happened if you weren't here, or what would somebody else have had to do if you weren't here doing it. Like I can look back at my career and very easily point to things that I accomplished, even though I'm not like a rock star. I honestly don't know what those people would say if you ask them those questions, honestly.
Managed people.
Yeah.
Managed them.
Yeah, and Doug Wise kind of is talking about project management, and it wasn't even project management. It was like just general strategy brainstorming, because all of the project management came from the bottom up too. It's very dysfunctional. Didn't hardly even made decisions. They seemed to take responsibility for things that went right, but you know, not for things that went wrong. Didn't make hard decisions. You know, they weren't really even interested in telling me what to work on. That was something that was kind of fun to discover. Is I realized I had some clout there. Maybe in 2018 or 2019, when people would sort of ask me if I wanted to work on things. I had an opportunity to join this project with one of my friends and step away from the team that I was on. And my boss's boss, like after I had said I want to work on this project, he personally came down to my cube and talked to me about it and made sure that I really wanted to do it, and I didn't feel like I was being forced into it. That felt pretty good. So yeah. Good times though. Well-meaning people, nice people. You know, I think a lot of them were doing their best to work within a broken system and to build people up within that system. I think it would have been better for everybody if they just let it burn. But what can you do?
What can you do?
Yeah, William Jeffrey Rankin. The worst were the occasional swoop and poops by sea levels. I experienced that a few times at McKesson. Oh, that's interesting. I think if I remember right, a bunch of people from my school actually went to work at McKesson, and there was a presentation once from a graduate of my school who worked there. Sounded like an interesting company. And that's the one big decision that somebody somewhere made that really affected me, was that kind of thing where some C-level person just decided, hey, we don't want this group here, we want it here. Drop everything that you're doing and move over here. And nobody found out about it ahead of time. It was very last minute. We all ended up wasting a bunch of time. So it was an awkward situation.
Well, one of the most frustrating things was you had a meeting just a little while before talking about the projects that you were going to be working on, and everybody was nodding along.
Yep. Yeah, that was the really annoying thing is so much was made in that organization of like individual technical people scouting projects and finding projects, and me and my friends we had built a new team and had done a bunch of research and planned this new project where we were going to split off of our current team, and all the management was just like, oh yeah, it looks great, and all those people knew that wasn't going to happen. And it's like they just, they could have told us, hey, instead of scouting this new project, why don't you wrap up what you're working on? There's nothing to worry about. Everything's going to be okay. You're not going to lose your job. Yeah. There's going to be some big changes coming, so now would be a good time to maybe wrap up what you're working on. But no,
or just postpone the meeting.
Just delay it. Say, hey, we're not going to make any decisions about the next thing until the new year.
Yeah,
but it's okay. Water under the bridge. All right. Well, that's enough about my day job. We'll talk more about that in another optional live stream. Thanks everyone for coming. I hope that you have a good rest of your evening, and stay tuned for I'll do a project update live stream sometime soon. I have some neat progress to show on my game project, so watch for that. And thanks again for coming to my channel, Katie. And
it was fun.
Yeah, you didn't stream last night, right? Because you were kind of feeling under the weather, but you'll probably be back next week.
Yes.
And we might be back sometime before then as well to work more on this. So
yeah,
this is not a super long, super big set compared to what's coming next. So I think we should finish this up.
Yeah, and I have a review I have a review of Kumasagi by Leslie Shu to do, and then I have a review of Jonathan Sugar's Afterlight, but that doesn't come out till June, so I'm going to be sitting on that for a bit. And then I actually started 2 books that have been sitting on my backlog, and quit them both under 5%. And so I'm having a rough time getting stuff up and finding good stuff to review in the last month, I feel like. But I'm gonna keep reading and writing up stuff as soon as I can. So I haven't given up.
All right, yeah. So stay tuned for that, and thanks again, everybody, for coming. See ya.
Good night.